This video, we talk about Section 1 of the Customs Act. And as I told you last time also, never ever forget to keep your notebook and pen ready. Okay, so keep this ready. Section 1. Section 1. Okay. Now, first, I'll show you the text and then we will talk about all this in detail. Here it is. Section 1, this is short title, extent and commencement. Subsection 1 says this act may be called the Customs Act 1962. It extends to whole of India and save as otherwise provided in this act. It applies also to the offences and contraventions thereunder committed outside India by any person. And number 3, it shall come into force on such a date by the central government may by notification the official gazette appoint. So there are 3 subsections in section number 1. This is number 1. This is name of the act. Number 2, applicability. And number 3, this is enforcement date. Okay. So for every section, for every finer point, we will keep on making the charts. These will help you in a big way to understand the finer points of law. Name of the act, we already discussed earlier. This is the Customs Act. The Customs Act 1962. Because this was approved by the Parliament on 13th December 1962. This is the date of approval of the act by the Parliament. Later on, it was further sent to the President and then it was signed. And after signing, the date was fixed, the notification was issued, and then that date will come here. This is the date of approval by the Parliament. As far as applicability is concerned, now this is some very interesting point to discuss. Number 1, this says applies to whole of India. Applies to whole of India. Right? But what about applicability outside India? In general, law of any country is applicable within that country only. And the laws can be made applicable to the residents or citizens of that country if they happen to be outside India. For example, under the Foreign Exchange Management Act of FEMA, if an individual who's a resident in India and he is temporarily outside India, he continues to be governed by provisions of FEMA. So the applicability of the law is extraterritorial. But this is not that way. In general, laws are applicable within the territory of the country only. Now, this act is one step ahead. Right. Now, see the wording. So, first part is applicability. This applies to the whole of India. Now, the second part, it says, save as otherwise provided in this act. What does it mean? Save as otherwise provided under this act. Save as otherwise provided under this act. What does it mean? This simply says if there are some specific provisions given in the act in relation to something done outside India, then that will prevail. If nothing is prescribed, then the next line will prevail, right? Because in between these two, there is word end. There is word end, right? Once again, because I'll take you to the text again and again because every word is important. See here. Okay, so this is end. Okay, it means this is a separate clause. It has nothing to do with the previous clause that is it is applicable for India, so it extends to whole of India. Plus, so end means plus. Now, save as otherwise provided in this act. Now, this is only in relation to the part following this line. Save as otherwise provided doesn't apply to the first line of the subsection. It applies also to the offences and contraventions thereunder committed outside India by any person. Okay. So now further it says, save as otherwise provided also applies to offences and contraventions. All the provisions of the act do not apply outside India. Only the provisions related to offences and contraventions. Also applies to offences and contraventions, and that is under this act, not other laws. Under this act. And those are committed by any person. not necessary that he is a resident or citizen of India, committed by any person. And these are outside India. Now, this line is very, very important to understand. Now, this applies to offenses and contraventions. But offensive contravention under which law? Under this act only. Who has committed the offense? Any person, maybe a citizen of India, maybe a citizen of some other country, and that offense or contravention has been committed outside India. If it is committed within India, it is already covered in this clause. First part applies to the whole of India. What about the offenses or contraventions committed outside India? Let us take an example. Any vessel is coming to India from outside India, and some narcotic drugs or psychotropic substances have been hidden in the vessel by any person. Right now, there is a vessel in which some illegal things have been hidden. Where that incident has taken place, that is outside India. But the moment that the vessel enters in India, right, every person who is likely to have committed that offense is punishable as per law in India. They cannot say that the hiding activity was done outside India and the narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances were hidden therein. Therefore, provisions of the Indian Act doesn't apply. No, contravention has been committed, violation has been committed, right, and that is as per this act. So, if you read section 111, only for this, section 111. In that, you will find offenses which are committed outside India. So that doesn't say where the offense has been committed. It simply says failure to make a disclosure. So if you know the Customs Act, you know that any vessel or the aircraft coming IGM is required to be filed before the arrival in India. And if they have not disclosed anything which is required to be disclosed therein, it is an offense or contravention committed. Right? When it was committed, certainly when they were outside India, because the filing was done before coming to India. Okay, so this is applicable even for offenses and contraventions. Understand it another way. Do they have to comply with all the Indian laws while being outside India? Certainly not. If they happen to be coming to India or it is having any connection with India and it is an offense under this act, then only the provisions of the act are applicable. And since it is related to contravention and violations, certainly we talk about the penalties. So penalty provisions in relation to contraventions and offenses will be applicable even if that offense has been committed outside India, provided it has some connection with India. If it doesn't have any connection, forget that. Okay, so this is a very, very important clause. So this act is called as the Customs Act of 1962. This was passed by Parliament on 13th of December 1962, and then comes the date of enforcement. So as far as subsection 3 says, that this says as may be notified by government, as may be notified by central government. Okay, so approved by Parliament, that is okay. But without the president's assent, it doesn't become law. And even after the president has signed it, so applicability has to be fixed by the central government. Why the central government should fix that? Because of subsection 3. Now read subsection 3. It shall come into force on such a date as the central government may by notification the official gazette appoint means the fix. So when the provisions become applicable? On the date appointed by the government. How that date is appointed? By way of notification, and the notification shall be published in the official gazette. And for that purpose, there was notification number 16. This is notification number 16 of 1963. And this said provisions are applicable with effect from 01/02/1963. From 1st February 1963, provisions became applicable. This is the date of approval. This is the date of applicability. This is approval. And this is the date from which provisions became applicable. Okay, so subsection 1 says this act may be called as the Customs Act 1962. Provisions of the act are applicable throughout the country and save as otherwise provided under this act. This also applies to the offenses and contraventions under the act but committed outside India by any person. And provisions will be applicable from the date which is fixed by the government, and the date fixed by the government by way of notification number 16 of 1963. Here it is the notification number. So this is notification number 16. Dated 23rd January 1963, and this says, in the exercise of powers conferred under subsection 3 of subsection 1 of the Customs Act 1962, the central government hereby appoints the 1st day of February 1963 as the date on which the act shall come in force. So I hope now section 1 is clear to you. Okay, so when you are studying law, superficial reading is not going to help you in any way. Every line, every sentence, every word must be understood very carefully. Generally, section 1 is not explained. I have given you that brief.